The big question that faces the world right now is how will Israel react to what happened last night? The barrage of missiles from Iran hitting Israel have meant that a response is virtually certain. But what form is it going to take? How is it going to spill over into the region? What impact is it going to have in the world? We've brought you perspectives from all over India and in different parts of Israel, Iran, and the United States. But I also wanted to bring in the perspective of a very well-known Indian journalist based in Abu Dhabi who has won several awards reporting conflict in the region and has traveled to many of these countries that we are talking about at this point of time. Welcoming Anjana Sankar, senior journalist with The National in Abu Dhabi, onto our coverage here. Anjana, good to see you. Thank you for your time here on India Today. My first direct question, Anjana, is how do you see the next few days play out? It's nearly a year since this cycle of the conflict began with that Hamas attack last year. Last night, Iran stepped directly into this fight with nearly 200 missiles fired into Israel. As a journalist based in the region, how do you see what happens next?
Hi, thank you, Shiv, for having me. Definitely the contours of the conflict has changed overnight with yesterday's attack that we saw from Iran. So far, what in the past 1 year, as you mentioned, what we have seen is Iran fight the war with Israel, whether it is in Hamas in Palestine, whether it is Hezbollah in Lebanon, or even the Houthi rebels in Yemen. But
yes,
with this attack, what has happened is it's very clear. It is the clearest sign that we have so far that the region is edging over a full-blown out war. Israel has already made it very clear that this brazen attack from Iran, that they are going to retaliate. They will choose the time and place where they want to attack. And we have to assume that it is almost certain that Israel will react, will retaliate to this attack on its sovereign territory. But the question is when and how. And Iran has already stated that this attack that they staged last night, this barrage of attacks, this is a very strategic and restrained attack on all the escalations that Israel has done. So the question is, if Israel attacks, which Israel will, what will be Iran's reaction? Iran has said if there is a retaliation from Israel, they are going to go on a second volley of attack on Israel. So there is definitely a fear that the Middle East is on the edge of a full-blown out war.
You're based in the United Arab Emirates, Anjana. How is the UAE looking at this particular escalation and what lies ahead?
So UAE is a country which has been batting for a ceasefire. UAE has been negotiating with, talking with the US and other parties involved to make sure that the only durable solution to this crisis is a two-state solution in Palestine. There has to be an escalation. There has to be a ceasefire. But now the question is, I think we are also asking how much has diplomacy succeeded in addressing this conflict, whether it is the US efforts, because US has consistently said over the past 1 year, with all the shuttle diplomacy that we have seen and all the other parties, including other Gulf countries that have played a part in pushing Israel and Hamas to come onto the table and to sign a ceasefire deal, which hasn't happened. What we have seen is only an escalation instead.
Considering that Israel has, a number of different options right now, the one thing that we can be reasonably sure about, Anjana, I don't know if you agree with me, is that an escalation is likely. It doesn't seem like now is going to be the point of de-escalation. It does seem like things are going to escalate from this point on. As a journalist who has traveled extensively, in the Middle East, as a reporter and as a journalist who's been there, does it feel like this is just the next cycle of conflict and nothing is ever really going to end? There will finally be some kind of brokered ceasefire, but ultimately nothing is ever resolved.
I am quite tempted to take a quite a pessimistic take on this, Shiv, as you said.
Yes.
We have seen these conflicts escalate, then de-escalates. There are ceasefires, but essentially we have never seen a durable, a long-term solution to the problems that that Middle East faces, especially stemming from the Israel-Palestinian conflict, a very complicated, complex conflict which goes back to decades. And this is a new and a different level of escalation that we saw on October 7th. And I think what is different this time is how different parties are getting involved. There is Hamas, there is Hezbollah from Lebanon, and there is Houthi rebels also, all of them getting into and jumping into the fray and turning it into a bigger, wider war in the region. And from Israel's point of view, after an October 7 attack, see, now they are fighting a multi-front war. A few days ago, their fighter jets flew thousands of miles to attack Hodeidah port, which is under the Houthi control, because Houthis have been waging a proxy war, attacking the shipping lines in the Red Sea in order to express their solidarity with their Palestinian brothers. And Hezbollah, I think Israel has definitely become emboldened with some of their back-to-back successes, military successes that we have seen, the pager attacks inside Lebanon, which kind of crippled a lot of Hezbollah fighters, the annihilation of the Hezbollah leader that we saw last week. So definitely it is an emboldened Israel that we see now. It's a brazen Netanyahu who is kind of drunk on war. And so Israel has made it very clear now that restraint is not the name of the game that they're playing with.
Restraint is not the name of the game.
So there's little hope at the moment, unless we see a miracle, there is a diplomatic miracle, and then we see there is some sort of de-escalation, like what we saw in April, after there was an attack by Iran, because this is the second missile attack from Iran, one which was in April. There was a major fear at that time that this is an escalation. But, after months, there was no response back from Iran after Israel hit them back. There was a de-escalation. So we have to wait and expect that there could be some sign of miracle this time.
I agree with you. Restraint doesn't seem to be the name of the game, and especially with Israel seeing, American pressure forcing restraint in April, not being the same kind of pressure that they're facing now, means that an escalation is virtually certain. It's only a question of what form that escalation will take. But I think, Anjana, we're going to hear much more from you in the days ahead as we continue to decode this conflict with voices such as yours in the region. For the moment, though, thank you very much, Anjana, for your time and your inputs on this unfolding story that has an impact not just on the region, but all across the world.